If you're currently shopping for a Nissan Frontier, you might want to put your purchase on hold, at least until you've seen these photos, because this is the refreshed 2025 Frontier. It receives some minor tweaks on the outside and some more important changes inside and to the towing capability. Starting outside, we get the revised front bumper that you see here. Now, unfortunately, Nissan has not sent photos of the entire Frontier lineup. Instead, they just sent a complete photo deck of the upcoming Pro 4X for 2025. The front bumper looks pretty similar. The grille is very, very similar to last year. The big difference is that instead of getting a stripe of body-colored plastic across the front bumper, everything is black, and it ties together the upper and the lower grills a little bit better. I also think it looks a little bit less like the Titan. Remember that the Titan is not going to continue for 2025. It has hit the end of the road. So the Frontier is going to stand on its own a little bit more. And that's part of why we get the next change for 2025. The popular or not popular 6-foot bed, depending on how you want to look at that, is now going to be available more broadly in the Frontier lineup. They're saying basically across the entire lineup. And I think that makes a lot of sense because limiting the bed to just certain trims in the lineup never made a lot of sense to me. But now that the Titan is gone, more people might want the features and the functions that we find in the larger cab, but they may also want the bigger bed in the back. And that's exactly why Nissan has done this. Looking around the outside, we also get some new wheels available on the Pro 4X. No details yet on the rest of the Frontier lineup, mind you, when it comes to the styling or the features. However, we do know that we get the same naturally aspirated 3.8-liter V6 engine under the hood. If you're looking for a regular V6 and a traditional automatic transmission, you have fewer and fewer options in this segment than ever before. The bestseller, the Toyota Tacoma, it's of course a small turbo engine now. We get the turbo engine in the Ranger lineup. Of course, there's turbo engines under the hood of the GMC and the Chevy, etc., etc. And if you're taking a look at a Honda Ridgeline, it's not exactly the same sort of vehicle because it's a front-wheel drive based drivetrain, not a rear-wheel drive body-on-frame pickup like we find in the Frontier. We still get the same 9-speed automatic transmission. This is, of course, the Mercedes 9-speed automatic transmission that Nissan is building themselves. Horsepower, basically the same, 310 horsepower, 281 pound-feet of torque. But thanks to some additional changes, we now get over 7,000 pounds of towing capability. 7,150 pounds of towing capability to be specific, although they have not said exactly which option combos you will have to select in order to get the max towing capability on the new Frontier. The other big change happens inside, where as you can see, we now have a bigger touchscreen LCD infotainment system. This really improves the look and the feel of the interior, at least for me. When this generation of Frontier launched, it honestly looked a little bit old at the time because some portions of the Frontier were actually carryover and a lot of the buttons and switches have been used in other Nissan products in the past. This new big screen, however, I think really fits the more modern theme of the interior. But if you look closely, you'll notice we don't get a full LCD instrument cluster. And that's something that I had expected here because, of course, Nissan has full LCD clusters in some of their other vehicles, most notably something like the Nissan Rogue, which is in the same price range as most of the Frontier lineup. Unfortunately, we don't get that feature, but we still have that smaller multifunction display there. The bigger LCD here is going to be the big thing for most shoppers. The previous model had wireless CarPlay, but it did not have wireless Android Auto. Now this screen is going to give you wireless CarPlay and wireless Android Auto, but they didn't send us any photos of what the Android Auto display looked like, at least not that I could see through this deck. We do, however, have a picture of Apple CarPlay, and it looks like it uses the entire screen. So I'm going to suspect that Android Auto is basically the same. We also get the side camera views, multiple different camera views there, lots of orange accents. And speaking of orange accents, let me know what you think of this enormous Frontier logo below that LCD infotainment system. That's the only thing I'm scratching my head about. I'm assuming this is just for the Pro 4X and just the Pro X versions of this. I would not want that big orange Frontier or whatever color that big Frontier logo would be in a regular model, but I could see maybe a Pro 4X customer might be interested in that. Now, outside the Pro 4X, Nissan has made some other updates. In the pre-2025 model year vehicle, not all trucks got a telescoping steering column. I always thought that was kind of weird because they designed one for the truck anyway. I would have thought it was easier just to have the same part and everything. Well, they finally decided that's true, so now every model gets a telescopic steering column. Of course, they all tilted. Now they tilt and telescope. They also mentioned that a 4-way power adjustable passenger seat now becomes standard on Pro X and Pro 4X, also SL SL grades. SV grades and higher have a 6-way power driver's seat that now adds 2-way power lumbar support. SV grades and higher get this 12.3-inch touchscreen infotainment system, which does mean that the base grades, if you're reading between the lines, they don't get the bigger screen that you're seeing here. On the other hand, all Frontiers are now going to get the sliding rear window. Previously, that was not an option on every model. They also get a sunglass holder, and SV trims now have standard 17-inch alloy wheels. It says SL grades are where you find the wireless phone charger, the 360-degree camera. The power 4-way passenger seat becomes standard in that model as well. It's worth noting that it is a 4-way power passenger seat, doesn't have the same adjustability as the driver's seat. Now for the crew cab long wheelbase 6-foot bed combo, that's now going to be available in SV, SL, and Pro 4X trims. So not the entire lineup, but certainly more than it was last year. As far as the towing capability, they said that it goes up by about 500 pounds across the board, so you can kind of read between the lines there. If you take a look at the models that had the max towing last year, add about 500 pounds across the board, and that's kind of how they all slot into one another there. Now it's time to sound off in the comment section below. What do you think of the changes for the 2025 Frontier? Did Nissan do enough? I think they probably did, although I would love to see some maybe less expensive combinations available in the Frontier. I know that a lot of manufacturers have really abandoned the less expensive truck segment in North America. I think that's part of why the Ford Maverick has become so popular in the US, and I would love to see maybe a really stripped down version of the Frontier with the 6-foot bed in the back, the big cab up front, just relatively basic in configuration, but with the big touchscreen. I am kind of sad that this big touchscreen is going to start out only in those upper end trims. I would love to see this particular feature make it standard across the lineup. I don't need wireless CarPlay, I don't need wireless Android Auto, but I would love to have the bigger screen, and I would love to have the option for some of the advanced safety tech on that base model. So you get a stripped down truck, or you could get a stripped down truck with the advanced safety tech. That's what I would love to see. But I am happy that Nissan is continuing with the Frontier, and generally speaking, there are more deals on the Frontier than you'll find on the hood of the Ford Ranger or especially the Toyota Tacoma. The Tacoma, even with that turbo engine that has been a little bit controversial, it's still selling like hotcakes, and it's going to be a lot easier to get a deal on a Frontier. And I think the Frontier is pretty handsome, actually. If I were shopping for a truck in this segment and I was simply looking for a rugged, dependable work truck, I would probably consider the Nissan. It's going to be relatively less expensive than most of the competition, so even if long-term it ended up being a little bit less reliable, you've probably still saved a great deal of money. And if you're not looking for a small displacement turbo, this is one of the few options that you can get in the United States, especially if you want something that doesn't have a small turbo and you still want to tow 7,000 pounds, have the 6-foot bed in the back, etc. You want that kind of capability and you don't want a Honda Ridgeline, you're basically looking at something exactly like this. Let me know what you think about that down there, and what do you wish Nissan would put on the Frontier? I'll see all of you later.